A popular new video game actually allows you to be a terrorist.
Certain forms of video game violence can be correlated to aggression and
but I think a lot of people don't seem to understand. You're not actually a terrorist. You're a CIA undercover
There's no
agent.
question that there's a correlation between video and game violence and screen violence.
Bring a game into a house, nothing to stop an 8-year-old kid from becoming a terrorist and shooting people.
That's right.
On a
But you're not a terrorist. That's ridiculous.
Who do we listen to? Do we listen to what Fox News has to say? Or do we listen to the facts? Media has become a huge part of the modern day generation and has misled the population to believing things that simply aren't true. This is the true case where the expression representation within power is at its strongest. While media may criticize video games, the reality still stands that there is no correlation between life violence and video games. In fact, Jim Steyer, founder of Common Sense Media, states that
There's no question that there's a correlation between video and game violence and screen violence and aggression in real life. The American Academy of Pediatrics just came out with a statement about that.
do video games lead to violence? That is the question over parents who have stumbled over the newly released popular games such as Modern Warfare 2, Grand Theft Auto, Watch Dogs, and even Innocent Mario. In fact, the American Academy of Pediatrics states that neither one of these measures tell us much about the real-life instances of aggression. Can we be the ones to blame video games? Without a complete understanding of the entire story, media's power has been so deceptive lately that it has controlled most of the representation of video games in America. Surely games such as Grand Theft Auto contain guns, theft, and for the most part violence. However, The Guardian states that psychological studies on aggression in video games tend to rely on measures of aggression that are far from the cry of murder. By this we mean that the studies done and shown on the news networks such as Fox News are in no way suitable to describe the interrelationship between video games and real-life violence. In fact, studies and surveys have argued that video games can lead to less aggression, as they serve as a therapeutic medium. The same case exists with The Inquirer, a powerful form of media in which discusses its opinions through opinions. In conducting their own surveys, they have found that none of them showed significant behavioral problems, but their teachers reported delays in learning academic skills, including writing and spelling. Violence is a behavioral problem, thus the argument that video games create violence is trivial. People need to understand that there are multiple sides to media, and that everything we hear and see is one story of itself. Unless they were able to understand one another and hear one another equally as Chimamanda Adichie addresses, then we ultimately can't be the one to judge. ASAP Science provides a positive aspect of video games by conducting its own factual studies. For example,
had participants play Super Mario 64 for 30 minutes a day over 2 months. Afterwards, the brains of these participants saw an increase of gray matter in areas associated with memory, strategic planning, and fine motor skills of the hands compared to those who had not played. These are particularly encouraging results for mental disorders which cause these brain regions to shrink, using video games as a therapy.
who do we choose to listen to? How does this affect us?
It affects us because it distorts the reality of things, leading us to be prejudiced on topics we just aren't clear about. But power controls what the people want to represent. They ignore opposing ideas and studies. So where does this leave video games?
Think you're able to keep track of what's in front of your eyes? Keep an eye on the blue circle here. Eventually, it will turn yellow like all the others. I will then point to a circle and you tell me if it was originally blue. If you knew this ball wasn't blue, then you're a functioning human being. But let's make it harder. Staring at the middle of the screen can help to keep track of the blue circles. Was this circle originally blue? If you said no, you'd be right. One more time, but with 5 blue circles. Was this one originally blue? Yep, it was. It turns out the average person can track about 3 to 4 objects, while practiced action gamers can track around 6 to 7.
While it may be generally expected to create negative effects, it's clear that the unbiased and true facts actually promote them. Playing games increases brain functions such as processing speed, logical comprehension, and many more. Games also help to relieve pain because they release endorphins that cause happiness and numbing, according to a study presented in the American Pain Society annual scientific meeting. Playing Call of Duty helps to improve eyesight based on a study by the University of Rochester. People who have played Call of Duty were able to discern subtle changes in brightness, which increases their ability to drive at night because you can pick out bright patches. The goal of news is supposed to supply accurate information. However, news today is based on profit and entertainment, which tunnels you into believing there is only one story. The news wanted to portray that video games lead to violence because that leads to a good story which parents are interested in. With research, it becomes obvious that video games are not the direct cause of violence within the youth.